Please stand for the Chairman of Thanet District Council.
Good evening, members and officers of the Council and members of the press and public. I welcome you to this meeting of the Council. If the fire alarm is activated, please vacate the office via the stairs, either through the secondary security doors to my right or the opposite lift in the foyer. Please do not use the lift. Please assemble in Hawley Square on the green. Officers will assist you and advise you when it is deemed to be safe to return. I would advise that if filming takes place, anyone in attendance in the public areas may have their image captured. I urge anyone filming proceedings to avoid filming members of the public, periodically if there is any children present. Does anyone intend to film the meeting? Right. Right. Any filming or recording will not be permitted for any item of business where exempt or confidential information is considered following the exclusion of the press and public from the meeting. Would everyone present please ensure that their mobile phones are turned to silent and that they are not used to make or receive phone calls whilst this meeting is in progress. Agenda item 1. Have we any councillors got any apologies? No, we're all here. Right. Right. Item 2, minutes of the previous meeting. I move that the minutes of the meeting of the Council held on the 18th of May 2023 be approved and signed as correct record. Would the Vice Chair please second?
Seconded.
Do members agree? Agree. Thank you. Agenda item 3, announcements. Please note that what happened there?
You read that bit. I'll sort this out.
Right, announcements. I am sad to inform councillors that the former councillor, John Kirby, has passed away. I would ask members to pause for a minute's silence in respect of Councillor John Kirby. Thank you. Is there anybody that wishes to speak?
Councillor Rogers.
Councillor?
Rogers.
Thank you, Chairman. I first met John when I owned a business in Grange Road, Ramsgate, and he had the post office opposite. John had been a county and district councillor, a magistrate, mayor of Ramsgate, and chairman of this council. It was John and his wife who encouraged me into politics and gave me an enormous amount of support. John was a kind, honest man with a great sense of humour, and we became good friends. John and Jill retired to Driffield in Yorkshire 2015, and I took his district seat. We kept in touch, and I visited a couple of times. He will be sadly missed by all who knew him. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Agenda item 4, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Right then. Agenda item 5, petitions. No new petitions have been received in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 12. Agenda item 6, questions from the press and public. There have been 5 questions received from the press and public in accordance with the Council Procedure Rule 13. Please note, only the questioner and the respondent are permitted to speak on the question. Could the questioner please only state the name of the Cabinet member to whom they question is to be put and read out the exact wording of the question that they submit to the Council. Item Agenda 6A, question number 1 from a member of the public regarding noise disturbance from Cramptons. I am pleased to welcome Mr. Knowles to the meeting. Could you please make your way to the microphone? No.
So Mr. Knowles will get a response in writing.
So we will contact Mr. Knowles in writing. Question number 2 from the member of the public regarding protection of farmland. I am pleased to welcome Ms. Brown to this meeting. Could you please make your way to the microphone?
Good evening. I'm Jackie Brown and I'm representing Westgate and Garnage Action Group against housing development on farmland. And my question is to the leader, Rick Everett, please. Is the new administration at TDC prepared to continue the work that the former leader of the council, Ash Ashby, started and lobbied the Secretary of State, the Department of Levelling Up, Housing and Communities to consider Thanet as a special case and grant protection to the district's farmland due to the rarity across the country of the grade of farmland and favourable growing conditions that exist in Thanet? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ms Brown, for your question. Yes, we're very proud of the farmland that we've got in Thanet, and we want to preserve it as far as we possibly can. The Council responded to the Government's consultation on draft changes to the National Planning Guidance, the NPPF, details of which are on the Council's website. This sets out, among other matters, that the case that the Government should give specific protection to best and most versatile farmland, grades 1, 2 and 3A. At the same time, the Labour Group, via Councillor Whitehead, submitted its own response to the NPPF consultation, and you'll be pleased to hear this took a similar view. So the Council's position on this issue remains unaltered by the change of administration. Both major parties in Thanet support the view that stronger protection is needed than the Government has so far proposed.
Thank you.
Right, thank you, Lead. Agenda item 6C, question number 3 from the member of the public regarding public toilets. I am pleased to welcome Ms Ferry to the meeting, and could you please make your way to the microphone?
Hi, I'm Karen Feary. I want to speak to Councillor Alban. I'd like to ask why the public toilets at local beaches are closed so early For instance, Dumpton Gap, the toilets close at 3:30. The cafe has a licence to remain open until 8 p.m. There are over 30 beach huts there. There are no other facilities nearby. Children have just left school, and with a light evening, surely the toilets should be open for longer. On Stone Bay, it's 16:10. Joss Bay, 16:45. On Facebook group Thanet Huts, there are so many comments regarding the state of the toilets or lack of them. This leaves many people without essential hygiene facilities. Visit England carried out a survey in 2019, and 54% of visitors cited public toilets affected where they would visit.
Right, thank you, Ms Ferry. I'll call upon Councillor Alban to respond.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, and thank you, Ms Ferry, for your question. There are 28 public toilets in Thanet. They're not all open according to the summer opening times, which can be found on the council's website. There's very little change to what was there last season. The times are still the same. The majority of our toilets are cleaned by 3 mobile units, each consisting of a member of cleansing team working from a small van. At Margate, Viking Bay and Ramsgate Sands, static cleaners are deployed due to the high footfall in those locations. The level of available resources and the need for cleaning at each site are both factors in determining the opening and closing times of each location. The rota for unlocking and locking is set to ensure the facilities in the area with the highest number of visitors are open for the longest period. At locking up time, staff work in teams to protect them from the antisocial behaviour which can occur in certain locations. And I can actually state that some of our staff have been assaulted while attempting to close the toilets. Keeping toilets open beyond the early evening presents a higher risk of vandalism, which can lead to temporary closure and costly repairs. For this reason, the latest closing times are between 8 p.m. and 8:30 at the main bays. Toilets may also be closed up to 15 minutes prior to the publicised closing time to enable thorough cleaning to be completed at each location. I would also state, Ms Ferry, that I am happy, together with the Director, to look to see whether we can extend some of the times to the smaller bays. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Alban. Agenda item 6D, question 4, from a member of the public regarding brownfield sites. I am pleased to welcome Ms McCourt to the meeting. Could you please make your way to the microphone?
Good evening, thank you. My question is directed to Rick Everett, and my question is, we have brownfield sites at Tivoli Road and at Station Yard, All Saints Avenue, Margate. 2 builders' businesses use these locations which are within residential areas. Our previous leader advised that a Russian owner was linked to the Station Yard site who was uncontactable. I believe that this council could take action and, where necessary, compulsory purchase these brownfield sites for housing. Empty homes and businesses in and around Margate and Cliftonville too could be developed. Turning these properties and sites into habitable homes for local people should be a priority. What lengths will this council go to in order to prioritise brownfield sites, as exampled here, for housing, before losing our prime farmland to developers who prioritise profits over providing the homes for our residents? Our environment, wildlife services and air quality is in jeopardy unless this council does all it can to stop the loss of our precious farmland. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms McCourt. Can I call upon the leader to respond?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ms McCourt. The identification of suitable brownfield sites for development is a key part of the local plan process. and a similar process is being undertaken for the local plan update. However, the local planning authority also has a responsibility to ensure that there is sufficient and suitable land available to support economic regeneration and local businesses. This includes the retention, where appropriate, of existing employment sites that contribute to that objective. The 2 sites mentioned have been identified as fulfilling that purpose and are protected for employment use in the adopted local plan. In relation to empty homes, an allowance is already made in the local plan, agreed by the planning inspectors, for the contribution to the housing land supply of empty homes brought back into use. I believe that Councillor Whitehead is going to say more about empty homes in response to a later question. But the point to make here is that an assumption about this is already factored into the housing number calculation. And I can tell you that it's currently 324 over the current plan period, or 27 per year. But I can also tell you that we're intending to do a lot better than that.
Thank you. Agenda item 6E, question number 5 from a member of the public regarding maintenance of formal public gardens. I am pleased to welcome Ms Bailey to the meeting. Could you please make your way to the microphone?
Good evening, thank you. My question's to Councillor Alban, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Broadstairs Tourism and Leisure Association. The flower beds along Victoria Gardens and in Victoria Parade and Victoria Gardens have always looked beautiful and have attracted very positive comments. However, this year they are overgrown with weeds and brambles and look extremely unkempt. The Broadstairs Tourism and Leisure Association have received several inquiries as to what has happened this year and where the gardeners are. Could you please tell us what has changed and what the plans are going forward in regard to reinstating and maintaining these formal public gardens in this popular tourist destination? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Bailey. I called upon Councillor Alban to respond.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to say that I went and had a look for myself yesterday just to see what was going on, and our staff were there working, and I'm sure you've seen over the last week that our staff have been there working. But in a full answer to your question, unfortunately the team are experiencing staff shortages this year, which coupled with machinery breakdowns has impacted their ability to deliver the usual standard of service in this location, and I totally agree with you, normally it's lovely. The supervisors have been working in Victoria Gardens, as I just said, over the last week or so to try and resolve the weed issue, and so I hope that it is at least looking better. Yes or no, that one. We are recruiting for the vacant post as well as management and seasonal roles, so going forward, hopefully the situation will improve.
Thank you. Agenda item 7, questions from members of council. 13 questions have been received from members of the council. Please note that the time allowed for consideration of questions from members shall not exceed 30 minutes. However, given that this is the first meeting that allows for questions since March and the next meeting after this isn't until October, I intend to allow all questions we have received. Right, yeah. So item 7A, question number 1 from a member regarding limited liable partnership. I called upon Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Chair. I think my question is to Councillor Yates, it's finance, or is it to the leader? Am I right? Okay. The following limited liability partnership, East Kent Opportunities LLP, was incorporated on the 4th of March 2008 and remains active, and according to Companies House is a joint partnership between KCC and TDC. The last set of accounts were registered on the 2nd of November 2022, covering the period of the year ending the 31st of March 2022. For what purpose was this LLP set up? How does it generate income/profits? And what does this money finance?
I call upon Councillor Yates to respond.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Ring. East Kent Opportunities was incorporated in 2008 as a joint venture between Thanet District Council and Kent County Council with the express aim of bringing forward 2 sites in Thanet in a complementary way to support economic development and regeneration in the area. Due to the fact this was an economic development regeneration project, no allowance has been made in the budget for any income or profit. Instead, these have been treated as windfalls as and when they have materialised, and in some instances used to repay investment costs associated with unlocking the site. For example, the cost of the spine road behind Sainsbury's, the Westwood Cross. Thank you.
Thank you. I call upon Councillor Wing. Do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do, Chair. Thank you. The most recent accounts, as we sent, indicate just over 9 million in equity and just over 800,000 in cash. Can you tell me if the LLP is linked directly or indirectly to any land along the Hayne Road, and whether the LLP has benefited financially from any of the various subsequent housing developments? Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Councillor Ring. Let me be as transparent as I can be. I can't answer that specific question about the linkage to Hayne Road.
I'm happy to take it in an email later on. I'll send you an email.
Yeah, if...
And that can be answered to save time and allow other questions.
Okay, let's do that. Thank you, Councillor Wing.
Thank you.
Agenda item 7B, question number 2 from a member regarding public toilets. I call upon Councillor Towning.
Thank you, Chair. My question is for Councillor Albin. In 2019, when the Conservatives were in control, I raised the issue about toilets with ex-Councillor Ashby.
Excuse me, Chair, it's not the question.
It is the question, if you wait.
It's not the question.
It's about toilets.
No, the question is what you've got there, what you put in. Read your question. I'm happy to answer your question.
Okay.
Context of the question.
Sorry?
You could give context of the question.
Well, okay, let me go to the question, as you know.
That would be fantastic.
Thank you. We've got several toilets in Thanet that are totally and completely out of use. And what I would like to know, when will we get those toilets back into use so the community and the visitors to Thanet can use them? When will that happen? Can you tell us your plan, please?
Right, thank you. We really want to stick to the question that's written down. So I'll call upon Councillor Alban to respond.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Towning. What I'm going to do is I'll read your question out for you. Your question: we are unable to use the public toilets in Thanet. Will you inform the meeting what steps have been taken to repair and have the toilets available for local residents and visitors to use? There are currently 28 public toilets open daily in Thanet. Last week, the public toilets on Cavendish Street in Ramsgate reopened. The toilets were closed in March 2022 due to continued antisocial and criminal behaviour. We have refurbished the toilet block and installed new litter bins and a planter. CCTV is also being installed to discourage further antisocial behaviour at the block. Although the toilets of Margate Clock Tower have been closed since 2019, we have once again put temporary toilets in place this season. Looking ahead, there is an objective to improve toilet provision in key locations across the district, and officers are currently scoping plans which will be shared later this year. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Towning, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you for that, Councillor. As I mentioned, as my question asks the question about when will these toilets be available for use. However, what you're not telling us what the real plan is. This looks as though there's going to be yet another review to tell us nothing about, because we've had 3 reviews previously and no one found out anything about those reviews, and we need to know what happens. So could you tell us, please?
Yes, I can tell you, Councillor Towning, is that your party was in control of Thanet District Council for the last 2 years, and for the last 2 years, and you didn't ask them what they were doing. You didn't ask your cabinet member what they were doing. I've just explained that we are looking at this, we are taking this forward, and I can tell you, Councillor Towning, that I will get it done, unlike your party. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Sorry, George.
Agenda item 7C, question number 3 from a member regarding the right to buy housing sales. I call upon Councillor Bayford.
Thank you, Chair. My question is for Councillor Whitehead. It's pleasing to note that following pressure from many authorities, including TDC, the government has changed the rules concerning receipts from right to buy housing sales, allowing councils to keep 100% of the monies raised, subject to certain conditions. Would the Cabinet Member for Housing outline how TDC intends to take advantage of this new freedom over the 2 years for which it is available?
Good question.
I called upon Councillor Whitehead to respond.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much, Councillor Bayford. As you've stated, for the financial years 2022 to 23 and 23 to 24, local authorities will be able to retain the Treasury share of right to buy receipts, but these can only be utilised in the same way as retained one-for-one receipts. In 22-23, the Treasury share was £196,112.11, and for 23-24, we have predicted this amount to be £65,371.86, which equates roughly to 4 right-to-buy sales. This equates to an estimate of just under £261,500 over 2 years. This is a welcome amount and will be utilised as part of the 40% subsidy required as part of the £8.1 million already in the approved Housing Revenue Account Capital Programme to provide additional, genuinely affordable homes for residents. Our ambitions to provide new affordable homes are the subject of a report later on in this agenda, and right to buy receipts are an important part of the funding for this programme.
Thank you. Councillor Bayford, do you have a supplementary question?
I do, Chair. Thank you. And thank you for your response, Councillor Whitehead.
You're welcome.
Right to buy receipts was a topic often raised at the Housing Cabinet Advisory Group, which I chaired until May. Are there any plans to re-establish a Housing Cabinet Advisory Group, which I believe was a very useful and effective way of creating cross-party involvement in this very important aspect of the Council's business? And if so, when is this likely to be?
Thank you, Councillor
Whitehead to respond.
Very sorry, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Bayford. Yes, as members, well, most members here will remember, I instituted the Housing CAG when we were in administration previously. So it's very, very important to me, and it will be one of the 4 Cabinet Advisory Groups that we are bringing forward as an administration very shortly. Thank you.
Right, okay. So, agenda item 7D, question number 4 from the member regarding privately funded CAF in North Down Park. I call upon Councillor Manners.
Thank you, Chair. My question's directed at Councillor Ruth Duckworth. One of my constituents has secured over 500 signatures in a petition calling upon TDC to facilitate offering a concession and thereafter inviting expressions of interest for a privately funded cafe operation in North Down Park near the children's play area, an area that is often blighted by antisocial behaviour. Can this be looked at as a priority? Indeed, can we now look forward to Thanet District Council encouraging enterprise and community cohesion as part of its forthcoming property strategy? Thank you.
I call upon Councillor Duckworth to respond.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you,
Councillor Manners, for your question. We're currently conducting a thorough review of North Down Park and all its facilities. The estates team is carefully evaluating every aspect, including the buildings, sports and recreation facilities, public conveniences, refreshments and other relevant factors. The main goal is to assess different options and make well-informed decisions. As part of the review, we are considering the possibility of offering refreshments and light snacks in the Parks Pavilion, subject to necessary consents. It's important for us to prioritise the protection of our green spaces and make the most of the existing buildings before considering the construction of new cafes. Our aim is to ensure a comprehensive evaluation that takes into account the feasibility of various options by utilising the existing infrastructure and exploring potential enhancements. We can maintain the park's natural beauty while providing additional amenities for the residents to enjoy.
Thank you. Councillor Manners, do you have a supplementary question?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Question number 5 from member regarding the Thanet Theatre Royal repair and refurbishment. I call upon Councillor Banbridge. I'm sorry about that.
Thank you, Chair. My question is for Councillor Yates. The Theatre Royal in Margate is a unique piece of Margate history, much loved and much missed since its closure. Recently, the Council was awarded £2 million from government funds towards the theatre's repair and refurbishment. Out of this, the sum of £370,000 was determined for urgently needed repairs required to keep the fine old building wind and watertight and to prevent its condition from deteriorating further. Can Councillor Yates assure me that steps will definitely be taken to ensure that these urgent repairs will be carried out before the onset of next winter? And can I please be advised of the timetable for these works?
Thank you. I call upon Councillor Duckworth to respond.
I got confused. I thought...
Sorry, Councillor Duckworth.
That's okay. As with all renovation projects, you often don't realise the full extent of what needs doing until proper surveys have been done. With the Theatre Royal, we have discovered the sunburner in the ceiling, which has heritage significance. It is an early Victorian gaslight and ventilation system, which needs careful investigation. In order to properly ventilate the theatre, it is very likely modern plants and extraction will need to be located on the roof and will need to be included in the final designs. An overall master plan is required with conservation principles applied to safeguard the heritage of the theatre. The building will be watertight before autumn, early winter, safeguarding it until the major works begin. The Council will be applying for National Lottery Heritage funding in the coming 6 months for the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bainbridge, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Chair. I have heard that the earmarked funding from the Margate Town deal for grass is to be reallocated. Can this be used to further secure the future of the Theatre Royal or the Winter Gardens?
Call upon Councillor Duckworth to respond, please.
Thank you, Chair. Well, that is not the case. There has to be no decision about reallocating the grass money. We're still hoping to be able to resolve the situation with grass amicably, and we're still hoping to be able to fund that project.
Thank you, Councillor Duckworth.
Thank you, Councillor Duckworth.
Agenda item 7F, question number 6, from a member regarding Birchington Neighbourhood Plan. I call upon Councillor Klopp.
Thank you, Chair. I believe this is for the leader. We have seen an updated plan submitted to the Council for 1,600 homes in Birchington. It is more important than ever that our villages, towns like Birchington, have robust and thorough neighbourhood plans in place to ensure that there is still some level of protection to our unique villages and towns. Birchington's neighbourhood plan has been delayed due to circumstances with the appointed examiner. Can the Cabinet Member or the leader please tell me what the Council will do so that this does not happen again to ensure we are supporting our towns and villages? Thank you.
I call upon Councillor Everett to respond.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Cutt, for your question. I understand that the draft neighbourhood report was expected at the end of January this year, although the process of considering it had been ongoing since late 2021. I'm also told that the delay to the examination was the result of some very unusual circumstances. However, the examination fact-check report has now been received, and what we're hoping is that the final report will be reported to Cabinet at the August meeting. So the process is accelerating. The other neighbourhood plans currently being prepared are running to the anticipated programme. Councillor Cupp, you asked what the Council will do to ensure this doesn't happen again. Well, I think to give you a proper response to that, I'd need to speak to somebody who had an interest in the matter as a Birchington councillor and was in the Cabinet for the entire period from late 2021 to May 2023 to find out what they did to chase the matter up during that 18-month period and why that doesn't seem to have had any effect. I don't know if Councillor Cupp knows anyone who fits that description.
Councillor Cupp, do you have a supplementary question?
I didn't, Chair, but I do now. I would just like to say that I just think it just shows the level of, obviously, clearly the politics that's going on here. But I didn't ask about what had happened. This is about what's going to happen in the future. But if you can't answer that, then that's fair enough. Thank you, Leader. I did ask a question.
Do you want to respond, Councillor Everett?
I don't think there's much point, to be honest with you. I mean, the whole of the delay relates to the period that Councillor Cupp was in the Cabinet. He wasn't the Cabinet member for planning, but I know he has a very good relationship with the leader, the ex-leader who was, and I think it's a bit much to come and ask me what I'm going to do about a problem that he couldn't solve. Thanks.
Right. Thank you, Councillor Everett. Agenda item 7G, question number 7 from a member regarding villages and local plan review. I call upon Councillor Pugh.
Look at that. Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I was wondering when it was going to get to me. My question is for the Leader of the Council. As the Council conducts the local plan review to extend the local plan to cover the period of 2031 to 2040, what protections will be put in place for villages in Thanet to ensure that they are protected not just from overdevelopment, but also from merging with one another?
Thank you. I call upon Councillor Everett to respond.
Thank you, Councillor Pugh. I mean, I think this is another subject on which we agree. The precise level of housing that will need to be accommodated in the district under the local plan review has not been determined, nor has the location or scale of any new development sites. Decisions about local plan allocations and other policies will be made by members, including full council, at different stages of the plan making process. The separation of settlements has been a feature of local plans in Thanet for many years, primarily through the Green Wedge policy, separating urban areas. In the villages, this is primarily achieved by the Village Confines policy, which is local plan policy SP24.
Thank you. Councillor Pugh, do you have a supplementary question, please?
I do, Chair, and thank you. I thank the Leader for his response. Particularly what I'm concerned about is that the change from the previous local plan to the current local plan and potentially this revised local plan means that the designations of outside the village confines doesn't hold the same level of protections that the prior designated village gaps do. Now, I understand that the villages are going to organically grow and future generations need housing. I completely get that, and I'm not advocating for no development across the villages at all. But what I would ask the Leader is, will he consider on a cross-party effort that for this review of the local plan and for it to cover the entirety of the district, in that we look at reinstating these village gaps to ensure that there is proper protections, because these village confines, there's plan applications that are going in now that are outside the village confines, and I don't think it means as much as the village gaps did before.
Thank you. I called upon the Leader, Councillor Everett, to respond, please.
Yes, Councillor Pugh, I think everything's up for grabs. I mean, we've already been asked about the Housing Cabinet Advisory Group. I'm very keen, and I've been involved in the last couple of days in re-establishing the Local Plan Cabinet Advisory Group, and I hope we'll get the decision notice out about that as soon as possible. And I think that feedback will be a valuable part of the process. You'll be aware that the local plan review is, again, a statutory and lengthy process. Currently, it's being held up by a couple of things. One of them is obviously the situation with Manston Airport, which is one of the things that we have to consider in the local plan review. But I think more importantly now, It's the government's changes to planning policy, and I don't think we're going to see those changes to planning policy until next year. And that's going to slow the whole process down further. But I would absolutely welcome your input and input from all across the chamber on what we should put in the local plan review. I look forward to considering it, and I think it's important everybody understands it's not a decision for me, it's a decision for the council. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Agenda item 7H, question number 8 from a member regarding the Regeneration Alliance and Ramsgate Society proposal. I call upon Councillor Davis.
Good evening, thank you, Chair. My question's for the leader as portfolio holder at the Port and Harbour, and I will read it so I don't go off track, you'll be pleased to hear. There has been a great deal of interest in and support for the Ramsgate Regeneration Alliance proposal to establish a regular tall ships event at the historic Royal Harbour of Ramsgate. This interest has come from the public, from community groups, including the Ramsgate Society and others, local businesses, and the Sail Training Association, who successfully run such events internationally for many years. The project will provide huge financial gain, both to the local economy across the island and to, in fact, to this authority can gain, to the region of 12 to 15 million pounds budget per event. That's not the authority, that's the total. Will the leader, as portfolio holder, support this exciting initiative with the potential to create jobs, training opportunities for youth and a huge boost to this island's tourism and leisure economy?
Thank you. I call upon Councillor Everett to respond.
Yeah, unfortunately, Chair, I've got a whole sequence of questions here, so you're going to get bored by the sound of my voice, where everybody else is at any rate. Yeah, it's an exciting idea, Councillor Davis. Thank you for your question. Tall ship events have taken place at Ramsgate before, as you know, most recently in the 1990s. The visit of El Galleon earlier this year also proved to be a popular local attraction. Any new event proposal should be submitted to the Council using the dedicated event app, which can be found on the Council's website. The application can then be reviewed by relevant officers, including the Harbour Master at Ramsgate, such that feedback from an initial assessment of the proposal can be given. Councillor Davis has suggested that such an event would generate employment training opportunities and 12 to 15 million benefit for the local economy. That's a very large number, so I'm assuming that he must have the evidence to support that claim. The details of anticipated benefits, accompanied by a robust business case, along with an assessment of enabling costs, should be included with an application for all such major events. Until the Council has been provided with that information, it's not possible to say whether we will be able to give the green light to such an event. However, subject to a favourable outcome to an initial assessment of the proposal, I would support further officer time being committed to offering feedback and guidance to an organiser such that they can further develop their plans.
Thank you. Councillor Davis, do you have a supplementary question?
I do, Chair. Thank you for your answer, Councillor Everett, and it sounds pretty encouraging on the whole, because I'm pleased to confirm, for example, you questioned the evidence as to the revenue. The good news is that's based on similar events at comparable ports that have been running over many years, as I say, with the Sail Training Association, because the good news is the model exists and all we have to do is bolt it into the asset that we have at the harbour. So I'd like to thank you for what sounds like a positive response and for the offer of officer time. What I'd like to do is, would he agree to meet with the directors of the Sail Training Association and the relevant officers in order to progress this further?
I call upon Councillor Everett to respond.
Yeah, I think we'd like a business case and an outline proposal, and then we can consider having a meeting, but I'm certainly open to that suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Everett. Agenda item 7I, oh not 71. Questions number 9 from a member regarding Southern Water. I'll call upon Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Chair. I believe this is a question to the leader. So how does this administration propose to challenge whether Southern Water has the ability to provide uninterrupted safe water for all households in Thanet, and that the company has extra capacity to dispose of and treat water from the potential 21,000 new homes that could be added to the water supply and treatment network in Thanet? If the proposed additional numbers are added to the local plan following the review, it's not a satisfactory solution to have a site to have on-site sewage disposal systems or cesspits installed on new developments with the waste being taken away in lorries? Thank you.
Thank you. I call upon Councillor Everett to respond.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your question, Councillor Scott. Alongside the local plan, the Council prepares an infrastructure delivery plan to ensure that the necessary infrastructure support development can be provided. This involves engagement with a range of statutory bodies and service providers, including the Environment Agency and Southern Water. This will also be a key part of the local plan update process. Just to be clear though, none of the current plans for the strategic housing allocations in the 2020 local plan include on-site sewerage disposal systems. So I think that's possibly a bit of a red herring. It should be noted that in 2024, the right to connect to the sewerage network as part of new development is to be removed from surface water runoff, which is the primary component that results in flooding and sewage relief. I understand that when these events are triggered, as much as 97% of the water in the system is surface water runoff. As for what we're going to do about it, since being elected in May, I've been speaking to other leaders across Kent about this, and there's a collective view that we need to act together to challenge the water companies that operate in the county, rather than just as individual authorities. Further discussions are due to take place about that in the near future, because we all recognise that the current situation is unacceptable. Unfortunately, we can only seek to influence, as we do not have any powers to act in this area, but by working together, we believe there is more chance of our voice being heard.
Thank you. Councillor Scott, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I do, Chair. Thank you for your answer. I think you've covered some of it, but I will just ask it out as if I've put it written. So I do want to reiterate the concerns of the viability of the Thanet's current water system and its future provision. Given that we yet again have had another discharge that affected the district last week, we must be mindful that other water companies such as Thames Water are collapsing due to mishandling of repairs, sewer flooding and customer satisfaction. What actions will the Council take to ensure Southern Water avoid this, or at least pursue the company for reparations for the Thanet community, as per our previous administration did? Thank you.
I call upon Councillor Everett to respond.
Well, I think we all agree that the situation is unacceptable, and I don't think anybody wants to defend it. What I would say is that as welcome as the reparations from Southern Water may have been, they haven't solved the problem, as is perfectly clear. I think we need a more comprehensive approach, and I think we need to involve all the districts and the unitary authority and the county to basically get our voice heard. So that's where I'll be directing my efforts in the short term. I don't think getting small pots of money is the answer to the problem. In fact, I think it lets Southern Water off the hook. It lets them think that they've bought us off, and I don't think we should be bought off. I think we should keep going after them.
Thank you. Agenda item 7J, question number 10, from a member regarding collaborative working with town and parish councils. I call upon Councillor Fellow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A short bit of context so everyone can understand my question. During the last term, a cross-party scrutiny panel working group, chaired excellently by your very own Councillor Curry, Umstead, put together a review on how town and parish councils can work collaboratively with TDC. The review was complete and a number of excellent recommendations have been put forward. Now, due to the election and the change of administration, the progress of the review through Cabinet has stalled. So my question is to Councillor Everett, will he give his assurance that the excellent scrutiny review be progressed through Cabinet as soon as possible so the recommendations put forward by the working group can be implemented? These recommendations will benefit all our residents and are wanted by town and parish councils, and will also help relieve some pressure on services offered by TDC and hopefully create a better working relationship between TDC and town and parish councils. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Can I call upon Councillor Everett to respond?
Yes.
Do you have a yes, Councillor Fellows supplementary?
Thank you, Leader, for that excellent answer. I do have a brief follow-up, and it's really just to ask him if he would push for TDC to create a better culture when dealing with town and parish councils, so they can be treated as the powerhouses of local representations that they are, and not treated as the poor relations that there so often happens.
I call upon Councillor Everett to respond.
Yes, well, I'm tempted to say that, I've been particularly impressed by the work that's been done in Ramsgate by Ramsgate Town Council, but I'm sure that you'll think that that's a political point. And I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward after the election results to working more closely with Broadstairs and St Peter's Town Council and with Westgate Town Council. I think we can play politics with it, but I actually think that the town and parish council is a very important part of our democratic setup in Thanet, and I do think that they can do things in their areas that TDC finds it difficult to do. And I look forward to, in the near future, and certainly by the next election, the establishment of a Margate Town Council so that the same thing can happen in Margate.
Thank you. Agenda item 7K, question number 11, from a member regarding Manston Airport. I call upon Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Chairman. My question is for the leader. Canterbury City Council and Dover District Council have both had a detailed presentation by River Oak at their full councils. Councillor Green objected to a presentation at the Overview and Scrutiny Committee and suggested it was delayed until after the court case, 6th of July, which was granted. My question is, as Manston Airport is in Thanet, can all councillors receive a full presentation by Tony Freudman, Director of River Oak, not just those members on the Overview and Scrutiny Committee? Thank you.
Thank you. I call upon Councillor Everett to respond.
Thank you, Councillor Rogers. I think you lost the last sentence of your question, which said that all councillors deserve to know the true facts so residents of Thanet can be better informed. Just being helpful, obviously. Just let's rehearse where we are, shall we? The Development Control Order application made by River Oak Strategic Partners was initially granted by the Department of Transport in July 2020. It was subsequently quashed by the High Court in February 2021, following an application for a judicial review of the decision. The Secretary of State at the time conceded that the decision approval letter issued did not contain enough detail to support the decision. Subsequently, the DCO was granted for a second time in August 22 by the Minister of Transport. This second decision has also been the subject of a judicial review application, which was considered by the High Court earlier this month. We are currently awaiting the outcome of this hearing. I'm sure that's true of all of us. Councillor Rogers, you'll be aware that Mr Freudman previously attended a members' briefing at this council, I think in 2021. I'm not sure how much has changed since then. As for true facts, I'm not sure that Mr Freudman has a monopoly on those. In fact, I'm quite certain that he doesn't. One thing which certainly wasn't a fact, despite appearing on thousands of Conservative election leaflets, was the claim that voting Conservative would mean the airport would reopen and voting Labour would mean that it wouldn't. The true fact in that respect was that the decision is out of this council's hands. But if the Conservatives want to interpret the result as a rejection of the airport, then it won't be me arguing with them. Once the outcome of the judicial review process is known, we would be happy to arrange for members to be briefed on what it means for the future, and that would include involving any relevant parties at that stage.
Thank you. Councillor Rogers, do you have a supplementary question, please?
I do, thank you. There's a lot of misinformation printed on social media, including some by Thanet councillors, and a lack of accurate, up-to-date knowledge. Do you agree that councillors, whatever their personal views, should be able to have access to the correct information? Thank you.
Call upon Councillor Everett. Do you? No?
Yeah, there's a lot of misinformation on social media. I'm with you there. I think that's true about virtually every topic that this council discusses, and that's just where we are in the world, I'm afraid. Yeah, absolutely. I think the facts are important. I think that there are facts on both sides of this argument, and councillors should debate on the basis of facts and not what they want to believe is true or what they've read on social media, and we'll try and facilitate that. Thank you.
Agenda item 7L, question number 12, from a member regarding parking review. I call upon Councillor Dawson.
Thank you, Mr Chairman, and good evening, Council. This question is for Councillor Keane. Can Councillor Keane please update the Council on where we are with the parking review that was sent out to tender under the previous administration?
Thank you. I'll call upon Councillor Keane to respond.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Dawson.
The parking review was delayed because of staffing resources and actually didn't go out to tender under the previous administration. However, I'm pleased to say that it will be live on the tender portal within the next week. As part of the review, stakeholders, including councillors, will be involved in providing feedback on the needs of the district.
Councillor Dawson, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I do, Chairman. The supplementary question is, will the Labour administration look at options such as a public consultation to ensure the council works with businesses and residents across Thanet so that the policy that the parking review will influence is fair for all residents and local businesses? Thank you.
Call upon Councillor Keane to respond, please.
Thank you for that question. And again, I'm very pleased to say that part of the tender is for a full public consultation, which will include not only councillors, but the public in people that live or work in Thanet or people with interests in Thanet, and as wide stakeholders as we can engage.
Agenda item 7M. Question 13 from a member regarding empty homes. I call upon Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very pleased to be bookending with my colleague here, and very nice to see that there are questions other than from the Green Party in this council. My question is to Councillor Whitehead. With rising rents and mortgage costs and a shortage of affordable homes, we all know many residents are struggling to keep a roof over their heads. Meanwhile, we're also aware we have empty homes in the district, and that the simplest, most cost-effective, most sustainable way to increase the housing supply is to make sure those are filled. This council has had success in filling empty homes previously through the No-Use Empty scheme. Could Councillor Whitehead please update us on current estimates of how many empty homes in the district might be available for occupation? That's not including second homes, Airbnbs and the like. Let us know what's happening to get as many of these occupied as possible, and tell us whether her administration plans to set targets for getting empty homes occupied. Thank you.
I call upon Councillor Whitehead to respond.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for your question, Councillor Austin. I frequently receive and answer questions on empty homes, and it's a topic I've explored at length on many occasions, so apologies to those of you who have experienced this before. And it is a very important issue, without doubt. But I would disagree with the assertion that bringing empty homes back into usage is the simplest and cheapest way to increase the housing supply, as if that were true, councils across the country would not be facing significant numbers of empty properties. The key issue here is the difference between private and public ownership, and the relative powers councils have in relation to both. Empty properties within our portfolio can and will be brought back into usage. We have legal ownership, and we can take action to make that happen. In terms of our ownership, we currently have 11 properties that would be classified as empty properties. 7 of these are fire damaged, 3 are welfare units, and 1 is currently under consideration for future housing plans. These properties can be brought back into use or already have future use, and we will be acting to ensure that they fulfil a very necessary social use. Properties owned by private individuals are not within our jurisdiction in the same way, and our powers are exceedingly limited in terms of direct actions that we can take to bring them back into usage. And the reason for the existence of empty properties is often not simple, frequently involving complex probate, issues of capacity and illness. Lengthy multi-agency approaches, often spanning years, are often necessary to bring even severely dilapidated homes into use. And a property in private ownership simply being empty without linked dilapidation or significant social disruption is not grounds to bring it into public hands, as they are considered private assets with legal protections relating to that. The key indicator for measurement here is the number of homes registered as unoccupied and unfurnished for more than 6 months on the council tax register. This overall figure is broken down into under 2 years, of which we have 953 properties, 2 to 5 years, 112 properties, 5 to 10 years, 40 properties, and over 10 years, 19 properties. The combined number, as of the 3rd of July 2023, is 1,124. Empty homes undergoing structural alterations and major repairs are eligible for a 12-month discount due to the importance of providing housing stock in good condition. There are 112 homes subject to such a discount. A further 315 properties have been left empty for more than 6 months for varying reasons, but primarily as they are awaiting probate, as referenced earlier. In total, the Council believes that there are 1,551 long-term empty homes that are of concern and that we continue to monitor. So to recap, in total we estimate that there are 1,551 properties that are currently long-term empty of differing duration. 1,540 of these properties are privately owned. We do currently have a dedicated full-time empty homes officer, as referenced. Their role is to engage with the owners of empty homes to help them bring their properties back into use, with support via the No Use Empty scheme. When the informal approach is unsuccessful, the Council considers whether there are any appropriate legal powers that could be used to help bring about reoccupation. It should be noted, however, that it is not unlawful to own an empty home. We offer loans and support via No Use Empty to bring properties requiring work back into usage. This has been very successful. We have also previously increased council tax on long-term empty properties to up to 3 times standard rate, dependent on how long the property is empty. These all act as incentives to bring property back into usage. Our target for the 23-24 year is to help bring 120 long-term empty homes back into use. Our Empty Properties Officer works incredibly hard, and we will continue to support those efforts. Although the overall number of empty properties is often quoted, it is also worth noting that over the past 15 years, our council has been the most successful local authority in the whole of Kent in terms of empty property interventions and in the number of homes brought back into use. This is a statistic that is often forgotten in these discussions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Austin, have you a supplementary question?
I have, Chair, yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Whitehead, for that full and detailed explanation. I'm sure that most members will have noted eagerly in their local government information unit bulletin this morning a report on from the all-party parliamentary group on ending homelessness, which is looking at commercial properties owned by councils and concluded that 7% of office space and 14% of retail units in England are vacant, and of those, councils own 6,000 commercial properties that have been empty for over a year and could be converted into homes. Do we have any plans to explore whether we own any such properties that might be ripe for conversion?
Thank you for that. That's a lovely question.
Right.
I think one of the issues, ironically enough, relates to the sustainability of buildings that have been used for business. In that currently, especially within our own portfolio, we are looking at how we make buildings energy efficient, how we increase ratings, and how we future-proof the way we develop and build. A lot of the issues in terms of sort of high street developments or business conversions centre around the fact that it is incredibly difficult to make these buildings energy efficient. And at a point where we're trying to bring energy efficiency to the heart of what we're doing in terms of housing development, I can see that would be both a challenging and probably a counterintuitive thing to do. I accept the matter of space, but it's whether it would produce the quality of accommodation that we want. So I'm more than happy to look at what we have, but that would be my major concern in terms of using business space. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you. Agenda item 8, notice of motion. One notice of motion has been received in accordance with the Council Procedure Rule 3. Please note the time allowed for this consideration of motion shall not exceed 30 minutes. I have asked to be succinct as possible. Agenda item 8A, motion regarding pausing new planning permission for major applications. I call upon Councillor Garner.
Thank you, Chair. As you will all have read in the paper attached to the agenda, the motion I'm proposing this evening is asking Council to pause the granting of new planning permissions for builds of more than 10 dwellings to allow for review into the impacts of current house building programme is having across Thanet. As you will also have read in the attached papers, officers need to produce a full report into the potential planning, legal and financial impacts of this motion to enable an informed debate. So I'm going to be asking you to vote to enable officers to do this so that we can return in October to have that debate. As far as the motion is concerned, we're all familiar with the concerns about Southern Water's infrastructure, been mentioned a few times already tonight. It's not fit for purpose, either to consistently guarantee a supply of fresh drinking water to us all, or to effectively deal with the associated sewage and any heavy rainfall without polluting the sea, devastating the biodiversity around the coastline and impacting local businesses, especially during the upcoming tourist season. Other infrastructure-related concerns we are all familiar with are the impacts on GP surgeries, the hospital, schools, and of course the road network. The house building programme also raises a number of other questions which need to be addressed, some of which are going to be discussed in later items tonight. How many previously approved planning applications are being sat on by developers? Why are so many properties left empty and not made available as primary residences, including many of the new houses being built? And how many previously approved affordable homes have actually been built and made available at affordable prices? I'm sure we've all had conversations with residents on their concerns about the infrastructure impacts I've mentioned, concerns I'm sure that featured prominently in most of our election campaigns, and concerns which get raised regularly when significant planning applications are discussed around the district, from Westwood to Birchington via Westgate and Garlinge. They are concerns that we as a council should have the opportunity to address. That's why I'm asking you to vote in favour of us asking officers to produce a full report into these potential planning, legal and financial impacts of the motion, and allow us to come back in October for a fully informed public debate on the motion. Thank you.
Right, I call upon Councillor Everett to respond.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Garner, for your motion. First thing to say is that I recognise that it deals with real concerns in our community and indeed within the council. I do think that there is a risk, however, that it encourages the public to believe that the council can do things that it can't do. I'm also not clear why some of the questions referenced in it, the matters referenced in it, can't be dealt with through existing channels, or how the answers will be carried into policy other than through the existing local plan review. However, rather than close down the debate at this point, I think it's in everybody's interest that officers do produce a report which sets out the legal and financial issues. That means that we can have an informed debate in October, and I think that everybody will look forward to that. Thank you.
Can just point it out to me, Councillor Garland, have you got a seconder for this? I'm sure you have. Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Just there, that's it.
Yeah. Would members please note that in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 3.7, it is not agreed to debate the motion. It will fall as only the Council can agree this motion. Can I have a proposal and a seconder for this debate this motion?
I'll propose that we debate it.
Councillor Pugh.
Right. Right, shall we, do members agree to debate the motion?
All those, do you want to say? Yeah, just say a show of hands. There you go, that's fine. That's fine. That'll do. That's
right.
That's fine. So, so we move on to this one.
Right. Council will agree to debate the issue. Paragraph 3.8 of the Constitution states the Council should not debate any motion which would give rise to a significant change to the income of the Council, to its expenditure or contract terms, unless it has received a report from the Chief Financing Officer or the Monitoring Officer as appropriate, setting out the legal or financial effects of the motion. After discussion with both planning and legal departments, this motion has the potential to have major impact on costs incurred by the Council due to potential action from developers through claims for non-determination. As such, in accordance with paragraph 3.8, the Council should not debate this motion at this meeting and defer it to the next meeting of the Council. A full report of the financial impact of the proposed motion can then be written for members' consideration so that an informed debate can take place at October Council meeting. Thank you. Less noise. Right, agenda item 9, leaders.
Thank you, Chair. This is my first report to Council of this administration and the first by a Labour majority leader in Thanet since 2003. And I am proud that this new Labour administration begins with the plan on tonight's agenda for a major extension of genuinely affordable council housing for residents in need. There is nothing that we do here which has more impact on the lives of residents than providing housing. And I know because I represent Newington, where housing issues loom larger than elsewhere. I know because I grew up in council housing, with 5 of us in a 2-bedroom flat until we got the opportunity to move into a brand new 3-bedroom council house with a garden. And I know the difference it makes for a child to have a space of their own in which to study, and for the whole family to have peace of mind that they're not going to be evicted at short notice to make way for someone who can pay a higher rent. The reality for many of the 1,600 local households on our waiting list, those in temporary accommodation and many others in the private rented sector, is that they are not in that position. Their living arrangements are often precarious and inadequate. Addressing that situation with rent that is genuinely affordable for as many residents as we can is fundamental to this Labour administration. And I pay tribute to the great work of our officers in housing and finance who have turned our ambitions into an achievable plan, as well as to our Labour Cabinet member and my Deputy Leader, Councillor Whitehead, whose commitment on housing issues is recognised across this council. The 400 homes we intend to secure across the 4-year life of this council will make a dent in our housing list. It will change the lives of those Thanet residents who benefit for the better. It will start this month with 42 new build properties at Spitfire Green. But I say to the council, as I said to the Director of Place when he first shared his detailed report with me, I want more. We will do everything we can, and hopefully with the help of an incoming Labour government at Westminster, to do even better for those in need. To be clear, this housing isn't a monetary cost to residents generally. The ring-fence budget which underpins it is financed by borrowing from future rent income, right-to-buy receipts and grants that cannot be spent in other areas. And it's important to say that because we know that many of the other services we provide to all our residents remain severely stretched. We must bring similar ambition to these parts of the council, but we must also be honest about what we inherit and the scale of the challenge. Residents tell us that the state of our public toilets isn't good enough and they aren't open long enough. They tell us that our multi-storey car parks are unwelcoming and difficult to access, and they complain about grass not being cut often enough in parks and open spaces, fly tipping and a lack of street cleaning in residential areas. And we know they're correct because we're all residents too. And because our public spaces shape everyone's perception of the district, whether as residents or visitors who are so vital to our economy, we recognise that the council needs to do better. And to be clear, this isn't a failure on the part of our existing staff, there simply aren't enough of them. Financial pressures are a major constraint on what we can do, and even more so in an era of rampant inflation. The amount that the council has to spend has fallen sharply in real terms, even while residents have seen their council tax rise each year. Fortunately, we have a great team of senior officers, currently being strengthened further by an array of new recruits. I know that collectively they have a strong commitment to Thanet and are as anxious as we are to make those improvements. I'm delighted that Colin Carmichael has agreed to continue as Interim Chief Executive for the time being, with Council's approval tonight, in order that we can all draw on his experience for a little longer. And I know that he's earned the respect of councillors across the chamber in the short time that he's been here. The Levelling Up Award for Ramsgate, the successful bid for which was put together under the Minority Labour administration 2 years ago, is a fundamental part of our plans. This is because it has the potential not just to utilise the port to a much greater extent than since 2013 and to provide jobs and training for local people, but also because it can unlock additional income for the council to spend on frontline services across the Isle. That is why both main parties on the council have been committed to it, and next week the public will have a chance to see for themselves how the Levelling Up plans are progressing. Importantly, we've recently begun the process of seeking an operator to run berths 2 and 3, and I'm confident that this will be successful. Thanet Parkway Station opens in 18 days' time. Through the South East Local Enterprise Partnership, the Getting Building Fund and the New Stations Fund, this represents a £30 million national capital investment in the future of our district, half as much again as the Levelling Up Award for Ramsgate. All of the bodies responsible have committed this money because they believe Parkway will support growth in the local economy. That has long been the view of this council too, and I believe that in 5 or 10 years' time, those who continue to claim otherwise will have been comprehensively proven wrong. One of the things that Mr Carmichael has been leading on as head of paid service has been negotiations with the GMB over their pay claim for cleansing staff. These discussions are strictly a matter for officers, but the fallout from them is very definitely something for members. This dispute is something else we inherited from the previous council, and despite talks taking place via ACAS, which resulted in an improved offer to staff, strike action remains a threat. An issue that is close to the hearts of many residents is the future of Margate's Winter Gardens. Recently, the Cabinet Member for Property and Regeneration, Councillor Duckworth, and I were given a personal tour of the building, mostly by torchlight, and including the behind-the-scenes area where most of us will never previously have been. While we can argue about the rights and wrongs of the decision to close the Winter Gardens, it is obvious to anyone who's been there in recent years that it has suffered from decades of underinvestment, which now needs to be put right. That's going to be a major job with an estimated £6 million price tag, and it's going to require external funding to make it happen. That is what this council is working towards, and shortly we will begin marketing it to potential operators to gauge their interest. But I want to make it very clear that this administration will do everything it can to restore the Winter Gardens, both structurally and in terms of its status as an iconic entertainment venue for the local community and beyond. But we must also be candid that there will be no quick fix. In the meantime, our priority is to keep the building safe, even though we understand that the security and safety measures we need to take to do that could give the impression that we're giving up on it. That is very far from being the case. Members will be aware that Kent County Council recently put forward proposals to close the Richborough Household Waste and Recycling Centre permanently and to reduce the operating hours at the Margate Centre to 5 days a week. I took the opportunity to speak to Roger Goff, the KCC leader, about this, and subsequently wrote to Susan Carey, KCC Cabinet Member for the Environment, particularly objecting to the fact that all 3 options in their proposed consultation included closing Richborough, which is used by many Thanet residents. And I'm pleased to note that they subsequently announced a revised consultation, including options under which Deal would close instead of Richborough. KCC's financial difficulties have led to other proposed service cuts and building closures in Thanet, affecting Shore Start and now the Youth Service, none of which are welcome to us. In the case of the recycling centres, we have concerns about congestion around the entrance to the Margate one on weekdays because of conflicts with vehicles accessing our own depot. There is also significant potential for additional fly tipping, which in effect means that KCC saving is an extra cost for this council. We will continue to lobby KCC to maintain both centres. Together with officers, I recently met representatives of the Local Government Boundary Commission for England, who advised that they will be carrying out a review of the District Council walled boundaries over the next year or so. This is something they do periodically to ensure that as far as possible the population has equal representation. And clearly there have been significant changes to its distribution since the current boundaries came into effect in 2003. This process may well result in Thanet having fewer district councillors after 2027, something which will probably please many of the commentators on social media and message boards, and it's also something I personally support. But this is up for discussion. I can understand that it may be unsettling for members to find that they've just been elected to a ward that isn't going to exist in the same way after the next election. But overall, this process is long overdue. We will also need to carry out a community governance review to redraw the boundaries for the towns and potentially the parishes if we don't want to have a very confusing set of local elections in 2027. This does, however, potentially provide a way forward for the establishment of a Margate Town Council. The Boundary Commissioners will be speaking to all group leaders next week, with a members' briefing on the process to follow in September. Finally, we're now coming into the peak period for Thanet's tourist industry, and therefore an important time for our local economy and the numerous small businesses who generate revenue and provide jobs. I hope, for the benefit of them, as well as the rest of us, that the next couple of months will continue to bring good weather. But I also recognise that this brings particular stresses for residents who live closest to our most popular beaches. The Council continues with its beach management activity and will work closely with other key agencies to try to minimise problems for residents and visitors alike. It is disappointing that we've had to take temporary measures to control access to parts of the harbour arm in Ramsgate to try to prevent young people putting themselves in serious danger in and around the water there on the hottest day. But it is the responsible thing for us to do. Despite the challenges the hotter weather brings, including in this chamber, I wish everyone a prosperous and enjoyable summer. Rest assured that whatever the temperature, we will be working hard behind the scenes to bring forward the positive changes that people voted for in May.
Call upon Councillor Pugh to comment on or ask questions in relationship to the Leader's report.
I will, Chair. Thank you, and thank you. I thank the Leader for his report. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Leader for advanced sight of his report before today. Thank you for that interruption. And of course, to congratulate him on becoming Leader of the Council. I'm sure he would agree with me that he certainly has some big shoes to fill. His predecessor took many of the difficult decisions that no one else would and has set this council on course to truly deliver for all Thanet residents. I note the Leader's remarks on the proposals to provide more affordable housing and welcome the proposals that will be put forward later by Councillor Whitehead. However, rather than purchase affordable housing from developers, whilst we have a waiting list of over 1,600 local residents, my question to the Leader, would it not be better for TDC to build our own affordable housing? And will the Leader commit to ensuring that we stop developers from providing less than the 30% affordable homes that is a policy within our local plan within their sites when it is urgently needed? Every time a developer argues down the percentage of affordable homes on their sites, we are a step further away from securing much needed homes for those most in need. It is interesting to note that the Leader includes references to the Ramsgate Levelling Up Fund, which the previous Conservative administration worked very hard to progress. But he has neglected to mention the Margate Digital Project, which was submitted by and secured under the previous Conservative administration, something that we are incredibly proud to have done only a week into taking over control of the council. Margate Digital has the potential to provide important educational courses for not just local people, but to attract more people to the Thanet area to study. In relation to the Ramsgate Levelling Up Fund, I'm sure the Leader will agree that it is important that the council delivers on all of the various projects, not just some of them. And with what I've heard previously of the proposals to move the fishermen's facilities, and that they were provided with a proposal that was considerably over budget, will projects be at risk of not being delivered? We're incredibly unfortunate, of course, to have secured 2 Levelling Up funds for Thanet, and so will the Leader again confirm that his administration will seek to deliver both of these as a priority, not just one? In relation to the Winter Gardens, I hope the Leader and Councillor Duckworth certainly enjoyed their tour of the building, and I'm glad to hear they appreciated the uniqueness of the building and the structure itself. Considering much of the false rhetoric that came from the Labour group under the previous council about the Winter Gardens, and that I met with many interested parties who may be able to renovate and operate the Winter Gardens before the local elections, it appears that this Labour administration will continue to follow the programme for identifying potential operators that was set out by the Conservatives. So I'm absolutely delighted that Councillor Yates continues to agree with the programme that I set out and agreed well over a year ago. It's absolutely fantastic. The Leader mentions about Richborough Waste and Recycling Centre. I'm delighted that the Leader feels that his contribution to not only Councillor Gough but to relevant county cabinet member was worthwhile. I know that it was also, or more importantly, it was the good work of not only the Conservative councillors for Sandwich, Cliffsend and Pegwell, and the subsequent county councillors in Sandwich and the Thanet villages that have worked incredibly hard to ensure that those options have been revised and that it's not a dead cert that Richborough Waste and Recycling Centre will close. Because as I think it was last year, I bumped into the Leader, the now Leader at the recycling centre. It's important to know that we both use that recycling centre and value it immensely. So it's fantastic that there's a bit of cross-party support on that, but I would like to say that was a successful campaign of Conservative councillors in the area that have resulted in that change. The Leader talks about a review of ward boundaries, and I agree that it's long overdue. And I hope that as this will affect all councillors, that the process for this will be as open and transparent as possible. And I think we can all agree, considering I think we're the second largest local authority by councillors in the entirety of Kent, that it's long overdue that we reduce our numbers. And I think residents expect that from us as well. The process to establish a Margate Town Council is also long overdue. And I hope that the Leader can confirm that this will be given as much priority, given that it was not under the previous Labour administration. And finally, I would like to add that and I think we've seen it tonight, really, that it's interesting to see this Labour administration continue to try and blame the previous Conservative administration for any questions that they don't really want to answer. I hope that that isn't going to be a recurring theme over this Labour administration, however long it lasts. Only got two. But what I would ask is that it's important, considering how small the Labour's majority is in this chamber, and it's lovely to see so many such red in here, of course, that the Labour administration works with all councillors cross-party on many key issues, and as much as it can get political in here, let's not get nasty and let's act like adults.
I call upon the Leader to respond.
Thank you, Councillor Pugh, for your response, and good to see you here tonight. I'm sorry you couldn't make it last time. But for the third time, I congratulate you on becoming leader of your group. I share your appreciation of Councillor Ashby. Actually, I met Councillor Ashby earlier this week. I had a chat with her, and no doubt, you've been speaking to her as well. So you'll know that she's getting on fine, and I wish her well. We do want to build affordable housing on as well as buy properties, but the difficulty, as you will know, is finding the land. And there is a programme for building new council housing on the land that we do have, and if we can identify more land and we can raise the money to do it, then they will certainly be doing that as well. But this is a new opportunity, and I'm really pleased that we've been able to bring it forward. As to whether we can stop developers walking away from the 30% threshold, the reality is that that's about viability in the planning process, as you well knows. And unfortunately, developers who can prove that the development isn't viable with 30% planning are able to secure permission with a lower percentage. That's more unacceptable to us than anybody, but that's where we are legally. And again, we have to talk about what the law allows us to do, not what we'd like to do. I certainly accept that what he says about the Margate Digital project. I've got the Ramsgate levelling up fund in my mind because of the exhibition next week, but I hope we can take that forward, and I'm sure that there'll be more information about that coming out in the near future, but we're committed to all the schemes, including the Margate Town deal. Yes, inflation is having its effect on the levelling up awards, particularly I know some of the details about what's happening in Ramsgate. We'll be talking more about that at the Cabinet meeting in August, and obviously we'll have an opportunity to discuss it then. I can't speak for Councillor Yates about the Winter Gardens. I'm sure that he's quite capable of arguing his own case. In terms of where we're going with it, certainly we're following the process that the Conservative group had outlined. We're also looking at other options. I think the main thing is that we get the Winter Gardens open, that we get the investment in the building, and we restore it to its proper status at the top of Margate's entertainment bill alongside Dreamland. I think we all want that, and how we do it, I think, well, there's certain different options, but we'll see. Richborough, well, let's see what happens. I'm always amused by the idea of Conservative councillors campaigning against the Conservative council. Yeah. I'm not claiming that I got them to change the consultation. The fact is they did change the consultation after I wrote to them, but I think they were coming under pressure from various directions. Margate Town Council, during the last Labour administration, well, as you will recall, there was a little thing called COVID going on, which actually significantly distracted the whole council during that period, so it would have been difficult, I think, to have embarked on that, particularly the signature collection exercise during the COVID epidemic. Yeah, you say it's a small majority. It's a bigger majority than the Conservatives have had here since 2011, I think.
Thank you, Councillor Everett. I call upon Councillor Garner to comment or ask questions in relationship to the Leader's report.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I'd also like to start by congratulating Councillor Everett and his group on achieving an overall majority, and to wish him well as leader of our council. I'm sure there will be occasions when we disagree with him on policy decisions and on priorities, and I might mention one or two later in this response. But we will, I'm sure, be able to do this with civility and with the best interest of the community at heart. I'd also like to take this opportunity, if I may, to thank the previous leader, Ash Ashby, for all the hard work she put in over the time she led the council to get the resolution of the significant governance issues we're all aware of over the line. Work which this new council will benefit from going forward. I wish her all the best for the future. The provision of more council housing is certainly something we welcome, and I hope we as a council will be able to build up our stock of council-owned homes over the next few years. We were encouraged by the assurances we got at the members' briefing earlier this week that, as well as being affordable in terms of rent, we'll be doing everything we can to make sure our housing is also affordable to run in terms of energy costs, i.e. properly constructed and insulated and without gas boilers. And we hope this approach will extend to other sustainability measures such as solar panels, rainwater capture, etc., for the benefit of residents, the area and for the planet. We recognise the excellent work being done by housing on the decarbonisation of our social housing and hope we can build on this. We also welcome your commitment to bring in similar ambition to other parts of the council, as things like litter, public toilets and parking make a massive difference to the quality of life of residents and the quality of experience for our visitors. There are a growing number of examples around the district where improvements have been made through engagement with community groups, which I think we need to build on. Whilst there are members of the public who prefer a tidy approach to parks, there is a way of combining tidy with managed habitat creation that will and does increase people's enjoyment of open spaces. This can be seen in Ellington Park, in Tivoli Park and Lymington Green Westgate, where the public's response to meadow creation a couple of years ago elicited 600 emails to the Westgate Parish Council expressing happiness with the scheme. We have seen similar in Broadstairs and St Peters over the last couple of years, which the Town Council there are looking to build on. On Thanet Parkway, we disagree. Another station in Thanet, permanently unmanned, that can only be reached by car, with a bus stop that will likely only be used when the bus replacement service is running, at a cost of £30 million, sorry, I better correct, 39, £2 million of which comes from TDC reserves, makes no sense, not just to us, but also some members of all the other parties. The only growth it will encourage is of housing and industrial estates in the surrounding fields. It is, however, a reality, as you say now, so I guess we will have to wait 5 or so years to see who was right. In the meantime, though, I'm sure one aspect that we can agree on is that the tree and shrub planting around the station, a lot of which has already started to die, needs to be replaced and maintained. And I'd ask if you could use your influence to join us in putting pressure on the developers to take action. Moving on, we also deplore the KCC's decision to close the household waste centre at Richborough and agree it's likely to increase fly tipping for surrounding district councils to deal with. We recognise the pressures on KCC's budget, but we will join the administration in lobbying them to make sure this and other centres remain open. As peak tourism period approaches, bringing the major business benefits the district relies on, it is important that we do more for residents, especially around the coastline, who are adversely impacted. As an example, over the weekend, 21st of June, for the residents of Botany Bay, it brought major disruption. Surrounding roads were gridlocked as hundreds of motorists were funnelled into narrow and congested residential streets, seemingly oblivious to signs displaying limited parking at Botany Bay. During this time, it was not possible for many residents to leave their properties, and if emergency services were required, they would not be able to attend. And I'm sure this is replicated in other areas around the district. This is dangerous, and working with the police and other agencies, we need to do more to come up with creative solutions to this problem. For all the reasons you highlighted about the significance and potential of the Levelling Up bid, we'd like to see regular updates on the externally funded regeneration programme. We welcome the new administration's expressed commitment to transparency and look forward to sharing a lot more information about this programme with our residents and receiving their feedback, starting with next week's open events in Ramsgate. And I'd like to finish, since the time's up, I'd like to finish by saying how pleased we are to note the new senior appointments, and we're delighted that Colin has agreed to stay on for a further year, subject to approval this evening. We'd like to thank him for his hard work and positive and constructive approach. We'd also like to register our appreciation for the hard work of our officers at all levels and recognise the extra stress they've been under in recent years, which we hope is now reducing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Garner, and I think you know that all the leaders of this council have, over the last 4 years, had a pretty amicable relationship, and I certainly include yourself, and I include the Conservative leadership. So sometimes when people see us have little spats in the council chamber, they get a false idea about how we cooperate behind the scenes. Because I think we all do, we have different ideas, but we do all want the best for Thanet. And some of the things that I've talked about tonight in terms of the public realm, I think we'd all like to do better. It's just a question of finding the way to do it. So we're going to have a fresh look at things and see what we can do better, and that includes things like the parking situation at Botany Bay. And I can't promise we'll do everything, but I can say that we'll try. There wasn't a lot that you said which was contentious or I disagree with. We can go over the Thanet Parkway question as many times as you like. I'm happy to look at the planting around it. I think that there needs to be a bus service there. It's not quite true that everybody has to arrive by car. Some people live in Cliff's End. But I think that the arguments that have often been made about the station come from the wrong place. People say, I'm not going to drive there from Ramsgate, I can get to Ramsgate Station. Well, that's what we want people to do. What we didn't want people to do was to drive to Ramsgate Station and park in Station Approach and Wilfrid Road and over-congest that area. And there is a problem with people parking in those roads and using the station. But it's not just about that. It is about growth. It is about the future. It is about attracting new people to come to Thanet. It's about attracting more investment into Thanet. And it is about housing. It is about housing. Let's be honest about it. It's always been about housing as well as everything else. I believe the station will be a success. I don't know whether it will be a success on day one or week one or month one, but I believe over time we'll come to recognise it. And the biggest thing is it's no threat whatsoever to any of the other stations. It was never going to be. Well, they were never going to turn trains around there. And all the other nonsense that's been talked about it is really not worth discussing any further.
Thank you. Can I call upon Councillor Borrow to comment on or ask questions in relationship to the leader's report?
Thank you, Chairman, and congratulations to Councillor Everett and to the Labour Group. Last time I made a report as an independent group leader was 8 years ago. So please forgive me if I'm a little bit rusty. I'm going to make it quick because I think I'd rather get to the point and say a few things rather than just go on and bore everyone. I've just come back from a lovely holiday in the south of France with some former colleagues. Had a really, really good time there. And you know what? I was going to read this, but I'm not going to make it too clinical. One of the things that really pushed me into coming back on the council, yeah, I've been in that group and I've been in that group, but one thing that's really made me come back is something personal and close to my own heart. I live in Briery Close. I think a few people in the gallery know where Briery Close is. It's a place where a beautiful field has been built on. Been there for many, many years. And we're afraid that the same thing's going to happen. Anyway, I'm going to get to the point now. The point I'm making is I was in Provence and there's beautiful countryside there. It's lovely. The quality of life, people are happy. People are smiling. You know, happy. It's good for you to be happy. And that was one thing that really touched me. Let's not take ourselves too seriously. And that's one thing I promised myself to do now I'm a councillor again.
Councillor
Not to take myself to...
can you just comment on the leader's report, please?
I will, and I think the leader's report was absolutely wonderful, Chair.
Well, thank you.
And I tell you what, my friend Councillor Everett has made some wonderful promises, and he's got 4 years to make them all happen. I mean, lots of people in the past, other previous leaders, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Hart and others, etc., Councillor Bayford, well, they've tried all these things and they haven't really got very far. So let's hope that Councillor Everett can achieve something that they didn't achieve. Finally, and I said I was going to make it short, and I do apologise, Chair, for going on a bit too long. One does do that sometimes. Let's hope that we're not going to be so Ramsgate-centric. What about Westgate and Garlinge? Let's do some more things for Westgate and Garlinge. What about road sweepers on the streets of Michel Avenue, Don de Leon, Briery Close? What about looking after the people of Westgate and Garlinge and Birchington even? You know, it's not just South Thanet. North Thanet does exist. Chairman, thank you very much for allowing me to go on. And Councillor Everett, wish you all the best. Hope you can get some results.
Thank you, Councillor Warren. Call upon the leader to respond.
Well, thank you, Councillor Warrow. And of course, you and I both know that we stood together in Eastcliff for the Labour Party in 2015, unsuccessfully on that occasion. Perhaps that was good counsel to be out of, with hindsight. So we go back a number of years, and I thank you for your kind words. The only thing I'm going to comment on is in respect of the idea that the administration might be dominated by Ramsgate. Let's be clear about this. There are 6 members of the Cabinet, 4 of them represent Margate wards. A 5th one represents a Ramsgate ward but lives in Margate. I am the only member of the Cabinet who represents Ramsgate ward and lives in the Ramsgate area. So there's no challenge, there's no real risk of this administration being dominated by Ramsgate. I'd like to talk more about Broadstairs, and I'm delighted that I'm going to get more information from my colleagues in Broadstairs that will enable me to do that and to understand it better. And I'm also going to draw on the expertise of our new colleagues from Westbrook and from Westgate in order to make sure that we reflect the issues in that area as well. And we'll talk cross-party to people representing other areas, including Councillor Smith in the villages. So, you know, I live in Cliffs End, not quite Ramsgate, is a village, understand some of the issues. Certainly there's people who'd like to do lots of development in Cliffs End. So, you know, I'm not entirely urban and Ramsgate orientated, whatever some of you might want to believe. But the proof of the pudding will be, over the next 4 years, we will do our best. That's all I can say.
Thank you. Agenda item 10, report of the chairman of the overview and scrutiny panel. I call upon Councillor Fellows to present the report.
Thank you. Mr Chairman, members will find my report in this evening's agenda pack that's been circulated to everyone. We had a lively first meeting of this term of the Overview and Scrutiny Panel on the 30th of May. It was good to see some new faces joining the Scrutiny Panel, as well as some familiar ones. Members of the Scrutiny Panel will be finalising the work programme shortly for the coming year. We have a long list of subjects and topics that we've been put forward to review. We probably have enough to last us for 4 years. The next meeting of the scrutiny is next Thursday, the 20th of July, where we've invited the leader along to give us his vision for Thanet for the next 4 years. Also, a number of subjects put forward for scrutiny were around the levelling up projects and the town deal, so we've invited the relevant officers to come along and give us an update on all the projects in Thanet. All members of this council are welcome along to scrutiny panel meetings, as well as all members of the public, so I hope to see many of you there. I'm happy to take any comments, questions or suggestions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Do members have any comments? No? Agenda item 11, appointment of monitoring officer. I called upon the leader.
Hopefully we'll have some different items that other people can talk about at future council meetings. Yeah, this report is regarding the appointment of the council's monitoring officer. Members will be aware that Ingrid Brown has recently been appointed as Head of Legal and Democracy, and she's expected to join the council in October. The General Purposes Committee considered a version of this report at its meeting on Monday and made the following recommendation to full council: that Ingrid Brown be appointed as the council's monitoring officer from her first day of service, that in the meantime Samira Khan should continue in that role until either she leaves the council service or until Ingrid Brown's first day of service, whichever is earlier, and that if Samira Khan leaves the council service before Ingrid Brown begins, Nick Hughes, as Deputy Monitoring Officer, should cover the role for the interim period. And I move these recommendations.
Right, agenda item 12, appointment of Head of Paid Services. I call upon the leader.
Thank you, Chair. This report is regarding the appointment of the council's Head of Paid Service. Members will be aware that Colin Carmichael's existing contract is due to expire imminently, and therefore it's necessary to make arrangements to continue to cover his role. The appointment of the Head of Paid Service is a decision for full council to agree. I know that members across the council have been impressed by Mr Carmichael's contribution in the time that he's been with us, and will welcome his willingness to continue for another year. However, he isn't able to stay with us for the longer term, so during that year the intention is to identify and appoint his successor. It's a considerable advantage that Mr Carmichael is willing to offer us both continuity and a level of flexibility. The General Purposes Committee considered a version of this report on Monday and made the following recommendations to Council. The full Council to extend the appointment of Colin Carmichael as Interim Chief Executive, Head of Paid Service and Returning Officer for a further year until the 31st of July 2024, and to note that the Appointments Panel has the responsibility of determining the timing and process of the appointment of a permanent Chief Executive. And I move these recommendations.
Mr Whitehead, you go.
Thank you, Chair. It's my pleasure to present the Affordable Housing Delivery Report tonight and to reiterate the recommendations. It is recommended that Council, firstly, adopt the target to deliver at least 400 new affordable homes by 2027 and agree the proposed funding and delivery proposal set out in this report. Secondly, replace the current phased approach to budgeting for the affordable housing programme with a single acquisitions and development budget. Thirdly, note that detailed projects will be presented to the Cabinet for approval as they are identified. And finally, approve an additional HRA capital budget of £7.485 million to deliver 51 new affordable homes as set out in 3.3 and 3.4 below, subject to Cabinet approving the details. In relation to why this is coming forwards, Our housing list currently stands at 1,604 households. These are all individuals with an identified and documented need for housing. The actual number of households who require support in accommodation is, without doubt, much higher. Almost all of us in this chamber will have worked with individuals facing these pressures already. Some we can support. Others are still struggling to navigate and even access the private market. Rental rates across Thanet are increasing rapidly, as are eviction notices. Properties that 5 years ago cost around £600 a month are now routinely marketed for over £1,200. And within our members' briefing, organised earlier this week specifically to discuss our change in approach, we explored the stark disparity between private rental rates and the rate of LHA. Our weekly, genuinely affordable rate for a 3-bed property currently amounts to £172 per week, below the local housing allowance rate of £184.11. The current average weekly private market rate is £276, £91.89 above weekly local housing allowance. And this is an average rate. 3-bed houses in Margate and Cliftonville, when available, often routinely exceed £375 per week, £190.89 above local housing allowance rate. Challenging times require skill and creativity, both of which we have in abundance within our housing team. I frequently speak highly of housing, and with exceptionally good reason. The ambition and commitment within housing is extraordinary, and the work that has gone into enabling this is a perfect example. We have an established track record of successfully delivering new, genuinely affordable rented homes, and an absolute commitment to delivering. Even in challenging times, we delivered an average of 18 properties per year, when many councils choose not to deliver housing and rely on the external market. We are now aiming to increase that delivery from 18 per year to over 100. To indicate our competence in this area, we have completed 144 new homes since our programme started in 2015, through a combination of construction, buying new homes, and buying vacant buildings for conversion. We already have funding and plans in place for the construction of a further 47 homes, and have earmarked £8.1 million annually in our housing revenue account business plan over the medium term, subject to around 40% of the cost coming from external subsidy. But we need to do more for our residents and deliver what is needed quickly, and I am delighted to be able to introduce this report that sets out our ambition and our methods to deliver over 400 new affordable homes for rent over the coming 4 years. It is well known by now that direct funding to councils to enable social and genuinely affordable housing will not cover all costs related to development. Our plans are based on 60% of the cost of delivering this programme being funded by borrowing within our housing revenue account, with the remaining 40% coming from external funding, such as affordable housing grants from Homes England, Section 106 planning agreements, or the receipts from right to buy sales. To give financial surety and security to council and residents, each individual project will have its costs assessed over its lifetime, projected forward for 50 years, and we will only proceed with projects that both cover their costs and are able to sustain the necessary borrowing. This is best illustrated by our first project, set out in the report, for the purchase of 42 homes at Spitfire Green, which shows a revenue deficit in the initial years but accumulates surpluses in the long term that can be used for further investment in homes and housing services. This is an approach that builds upon itself, a way to make housing actively work to deliver further housing, to make genuinely affordable rent a reality in Thanet. This report recommends the necessary £5 million budget to deliver the first project of our exciting programme. The report also recommends a budget for a further early project for 9 homes, with external match funding from the government's Local Authority Housing Fund, to be used initially for refugee families from Ukraine and Afghanistan, and subsequently let to families from the Council's Housing Register. Part of this project is funded by the Local Authority Housing Fund, and due to this funding, this project will generate surpluses from the very first year, which will be used to support further housing projects. Investment in housing is an investment in the future of our residents and in our future as a council. As such, I am delighted to move the recommendations in the report.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you. Do members agree? Yes. Right. Thank you. Agenda item 14, allowance report recommendations from UKJIRP. I move the council notes the recommendations of East Kent Joint Independent Remuneration Panel be adopted, namely that it be recommended to Thanet District Council that the members' allowance scheme to 2023-54 as set out in Annex 1 of the report be approved. B, in respect of the Department Careers Allowance, the Dependent Carers Allowance, the panel will propose a move to actual cost refurbishment instead of refurbishment based on national living wage. Can the Vice Chair please second?
Seconded.
Do members agree?
No, okay. So, do you want to debate?
Do we want to debate that? No.
Yeah,
Yes, we.
We agree. Well, do you want to show of hands? You do a show of hands if you want.
I'd take a show of hands after.
Yeah, I'll take a show of hands.
Right. So we'll have a show of hands then, please. Do members agree?
Those agree.
Right. Members who disagree? Right.
And those, any abstentions? Any abstentions?
Any abstentions?
Right, that's agreed.
Okay, that's agreed. Thank you. Item 15, representation of non-executive outside bodies. I move that the recommendations as set out in the report are adopted. Would the Vice Chair please second?
Seconded.
Do members agree? Agree. Thank you. Agenda item 16, exclusion of press and public. I move that the public and press be excluded from the meeting for agenda item 17 as it contains exempt information as defined in paragraph 1 and 2 of the Schedule 12A, Part 1 of the Local Government Act 1972. Would the Vice Chair please second?
Seconded.
Do members agree? Yeah, right. Can those in the public gallery now leave the meeting to allow the Council to consider item 17 in private session, please? So wonder they lasted that.